Hello, I am arrived. I've just let this all running for a few moments while I was doing some setup stuff. But here we are today, PSGL season 42, round 2 of the PSF2 division. It's Azerbaijan, as you can of course see wards on a lap at the moment going through the castle sections, and then working their way down towards the end of their third sector. Not seen much of his run, but I set it up so you can watch the beauty of this fluorescent pink Racing Bulls delivery go at it as they end up grazing the wall there after the first two sectors. A banker of a 13.929 for the Racing Bulls as they go through the final few corners, and now it's foot to the floor. Try and bury that pedal as deep as you can as you fly up to the start finish line. What will it be? 4 wards. It will be a 37.6 for the Racing Bulls. Then you've got Priory Bell B, the one driver who failed to finish last week. What can the Sauber do? Can they match the Racing Bulls? They cross the line, and it's a good 1.1 seconds off. Not that impressive whatsoever, as you could find Christian working their way up to the start finish line. What will it be for the Scuderia? It'll be second fastest, and then Tiago over the line to make it a 1-2 provisionally for the Racing Bulls team. But can Bruno beat him in the Aston? No, he can't. He will have to wait a while longer as Nick goes up to third. It's then Cassie, Yannick, and I believe Benjamin all on the same straight. Benjamin up to 7th. What about Passy in the Haas? It's 4th fastest for them. And then you have Diogo Silva and Junkie just up ahead. Junkie goes to 10th. Slowest so far. What about Diogo Silva? He goes to 8th quickest for the time being. Then you have ASRT Spiga, who now speeds across the line to the 37.7 as Lucas. 5th place grid penalty for a collision with wards. It's Mattia Manga up next in the Silver Arrow, hoping to hit the bullseye. Unfortunately a long way off with only 14th place as things stand. You've got Phil Sousa, however, who is absolute best in the middle sector. The Aston Martin getting a puncture late on last week saw them in the wall. Now hoping to have a bit of redemption in the streets of Baku. Over the line now, and it's only enough for 6th fastest as things stand. Yannick limping around the track. Danilo, however, pushing through the first sector, now shoving their way into the middle sector immediately, going down the gears and now climbing back up them as they work their way up towards the infamous castle section. Will he have his own unique I am stupid moment? We will find out, as brakes nice and early, gets the steering angles all right and survives it. Maybe they aren't stupid in all, as Daniela continuing their journey around this circuit under the Louis Vuitton bannered bridge, and now jumping over the curbs, almost like they're down under, being a little kangaroo. But for Danilo's sake, it's only a 14.276 in the first two sectors. It's not looking too impressive whatsoever. Remember, these are your second fastest set of PS console drivers, and hopefully the Sauber is hoping for a lot more than 9th fastest in this session so far. Provatox going quite slowly at the moment, of 14.9 after the first two sectors. I think it is somewhat on par to maybe match their teammate of Christian in the Scuderia, who's currently sitting in 8th and only 25 thousandths up on 9th for Provatox. Where will he go? it will only be 16th. There's a lot more cons than pros in this case for that Ferrari, as cars starting to work their way back out onto track for the second stage of qualifying. It's typical when we see this. Usually you see 2 or 3 hot lap phases in qualifying. First set is just your bankers, second set tends to be your best, and then the final one is a last inch run where it's every man for themselves. If you don't improve, you're going down the order. If you improve, you're going almost certainly to the top of the timing ladder. However, for Priori, their priority is to get outside that bottom 6 and maybe even into that top 6. It's a long way away at the moment. Currently 8/10 between Bill Souza, who's sitting 6th, and Priori down in a lonely 15th as they work their way up towards turn 1 now. DRS wide open, battery now being depleted as they work their way towards the first corner. You can see their teammate diving into the pit lane, and they're of course on different set of run plans, but for Priori that does not phase them whatsoever as they try and maneuver their way through this rather twisty street circuit. Most of these corners 90-degree angles as they now plummet down the gears. A lovely saying that I love personally, but Priori keeping their heads screwed on after the first sector. 29 thousandths improvement. It says the best per first sector we've seen so far. It probably is the best one I've seen this evening, as I've not tuned in with too many sector ones to say the least. But for the Sauber, getting very close to that wall, in fact kissing it on the way through the castle section, now using their battery to work their way to the end of the middle sector. This is one of your more high speed elements of the circuit against a very slow moving track, as there is Mercedes managing to get out of the way in time. Could have ended up being a nightmare for Priori as they now work their way up towards the start finish line. Battery in full deploy mode, overtake when they aren't really overtaking, it's just getting them to that start finish line. What will it be for Priori Bell B? Will they hit the top? They'll go second. A brilliant lap for them as Lucas goes to the top with a memento lap. For a moment Priori thought there'd be provisional front row. Unfortunately for them, they will have to think a bit more about that. Not too far off whatsoever, but that is a stellar lap from the Sauber driver. Sauber 6 points in the season opener, putting them 5th after Mattis Gullit scored them all. For Priori, he's hoping to help them out as NB goes up to 9th, with now Benjamin working up to the line with a Haas and an Aston just up ahead. Mattia Manga goes, no, not Mattia, Yannick goes 18th with Ben up to 11th. You can then find Thiago, who's now gone to the top. A good lap for the Racing Bulls, as we are going to try and find someone working their way up to the line. In fact, the man leading this queue of cars down the start-finish straight is Diogo Silva in the Alpine. What can they do here today? They go only 14th as Wards with that toe. Fastest man out on track, Danilo, starting a flyer now as Harmon also starting a fresh flyer in this session. You'll have a Red Bull of Axel, who crosses to go up to 9th as Harm has retired from the session. We'll see whether or not we can spot what happened. There we go, car off in the wall, and that is why that Williams is going to have a maximum start of 16th. If worst comes to worst, it may be lower than that. However, Nick setting that middle sector alight hoping to set the whole track alight in Papaya now as they work their way up to the start-finish line. Into the pits goes the McLaren. So they thought otherwise as Passy were manoeuvring their way through the middle sector. Yannick on their way into the pit lane. So we will see what their teammate of Passy can do. Never mind, he is on a slow, you can tell just through the way in which they are harvesting that battery for every nip and gram. As now we will just continue to wait this qualifying out until we see another set of runs, but for the time being we have got Provatox out on track, hoping to be the one to send Ferrari back towards the front. They were pointless in the season opener with 11th and 16th in that race, hoping to do a lot more regarding they're the reigning champions of this division. Provatox using the tow from the Mercedes, slingshotting them up to the start finish line. Can the Scuderia prance to the top? They'll go P9. It's a good gain for them. It's of course not the best in which they can do. They're still a good 6/10 off of Wards, who is at the top of your timing ladder as things stand. Mattia Manga slowly limping their way into the pits, but for the sake of McLaren, Lucas and IRT Nick on their way round for a final fly as we enter our final 3.5 minutes in this rather busy qualifying session, to say the least. We've seen at least a good 30 seconds of every single car out on track. That is how busy it has been so far. But if you look at it at the top, 5 thousandths of a second. If you don't know what a thousandth is, it's 2-3 decimal places. But Wards leading Spiga, Racing Bulls versus Mercedes, 0.005 in it, with Thiago only a 10.5 further back in the other Racing Bulls. So Lucas hoping to split the V-carbs as they work their way, marching towards turn 1 with some feel of awkward confidence as they go heavy onto the brakes, chuck it in left, slightly miss the apex, a bit of a wobble on the way out, making sure it's all stable as they go chucking it over the curb, really using the track to its full width when there really is not much whatsoever. Williams going slow and Lucas impeded and now goes off, hits them as well and gets another 5-place grid penalty for full on getting body blocked, under braking into turn 3. It's such a shame for the McLaren. Could be a lobby reset after this as Nick continues to go further than what their teammate was able to do, as Lucas had a little moment there. Provatox has retired in the pit lane, but Nick continuing to work their way around pretty much in traffic paradise here as Nick squeezing past the Mercedes and continuing on their way. Probably not the most efficient of manners, and they've ended up going into the wall, and that is Nick out of qualifying. Both McLaren have had their chances squandered of pole position as Yannick starts our final runs here today in PSGL PSF2 round 2 in Azerbaijan, as the man starting P20 as things stand, hoping to push themselves a bit further up that pecking order, 7/10 off of the man in 17th, which is harm and pretty much harmless in this session so far, as they are unable to do another run for a crash in turn 2, which is a shame. But for Yannick, near enough 4/10 improvement for the American manufacturer. Haas currently third in the championship after scoring 12 in that season opener. highest team. That isn't VCarb or McLaren, joint on 16. So they are definitely best of rest, as Matthew Manga has had an offing in turn 1. That's their session over in the Mercedes. Lucas has also retired, so that's 6th and 8th at best. But bear in mind, the McLaren, if I'm right, has 10 places to serve, as now for Yannick, half a second up. It's looking good to maybe try and rival the two Alpines in 18th and 19th with a 38.4 and a 38.6. But what will Yannick do? Flying up to the start-finish line, using all the overtake they have available to them, as over the line goes Yannick, and it's a P7, a 37.6, and as they say, save the best until last. For Axel, it will also be his best. That's P8 for them. Tiago next only goes to 3rd, and then we have the other Racing Bulls of Wards, as some other cars improving. Passy only to 3rd. He split the Racing Bulls and put them even further apart, but can Wards reassert their dominance and reinstate their pole? Yes, they will. A brilliant lap, another 2.5 tenths improvement. Looks almost impossible to beat here, as Junkie Angle over the line in the Alpine goes 16th. Diogo Silva up next and does not improve. Bill Souza now for P6. Then it's ASRT Spiga and Ferrari Bell B into the pits. So it's all down to this Mercedes into the pits for them as well, as that is qualifying wrapped with Wards on pole by 2.5 tenths of a second. An absolute fabulous lap for the Racing Bulls driver, as they really do set themselves up quite nicely for the main race. Only coming 12th last week, really struggled in Barcelona. They do look like they are back in their own element here in Azerbaijan, as we now just sit and wait for the game to finally turn around and say, yes, qualifying's over. Yes, it is now, as the pole sitter being Wards. He's got a 5-place grid penalty. It'll be interesting to see if there's a reset for that. Then it's Spiga in 2nd, Passy in 3rd, Tiago 4th, Bruno in 5th with Bill Souza 6th, Lucas in 7th, holding 10 places. Yannick in 8th, NB72 9th with F1 Axel in 10th. Priori Bell B leads their teammate Danilo on that 6th row with 11th and 12th. Then it's the two Dutchmen on row 7 of Nick and Provotox. Then it's the other Scuderia behind him in 15th of Christian, Junkie Angle 16th, Ben 17th, Matthew Manga 18th, Harm 19th, and last but not least, Diogo Silva. As hello to you, Indigar. Hope you're having a good evening or day based off your time zone. And hopefully we are in for a treat in a couple of moments' time. I'll keep an eye out on if we end up having that restart. I would not be too surprised if we do so, but just waiting for the notification, which can either confirm or deny that. Usually this is the stage of the event in which I waffle about tyre data, waffle about strategies, but I cannot tell you a thing about Baku. I have so little knowledge of it, but we are going racing. 5 lights are up and a lot of jump starts, so I can tell you that it will be a lobby reset just by that. I feel like these drivers have enjoyed themselves, as there goes one of the Haas drivers, as you're getting some absolute cinema here with NB72 leading away on this opening lap and will win the Demolition Derby event. Don't worry, that was just a little pre-taster, let's say, as that was a very, very perplexed Warzone which we've just witnessed. But yeah, we will go into the main race in a few moments, as Indigo confirms he's from the UK, everyone. But yeah, we will just have a slight intermission. Feel free to talk away and chat. Give me your predictions on who will win according to qualifying, as I quickly go up and get those quali results for the guys to rebuild that grid in a few moments' time. But yeah, just bear the next few minutes. As yeah, if I was to predict who will win, I think it's going to have to be Wards, based off that really strong performance in qualifying 2.5 temps clear of anyone else. As yeah, sorry for the what's it? Slight delay for those just tuning in. Do not leave, as we will be back in action, hopefully soon. But yeah, for those watching, feel free to give me your predictions for the main race, which will be, of course, right around the corner, as we will just continue to wait and wait until it finally comes around. As 21 of you are currently watching, so yeah, thanks for you all tuning in to this PSGL event. Hopefully we have a great race in hand for you. I'm now actually debating myself, why is it taking so long, but just trust the processes, guys. As Lucas saying he wants to redo qualifying, because why not? Some drivers debating on the weather this fine evening in Baku. As for me, I'm just looking out my window and I can see that it's pitch black here in the UK. So whatever it will be, it will definitely be a lot more sunnier than what I've got at the moment. My light is bringing more illumination to the room than anything else at the moment. However, besides that little dawdle off track, we will hopefully, as I've probably said about 10 times in the last 3 minutes, hopefully we'll get back underway soon. So yeah, just keep on waiting, guys. If you're, close your eyes and count sheep, go grab a bag of popcorn, go even grab a drink if you are thirsty. And just sit back, relax, and enjoy as Tiago giving the signal in a moment. He's just asked if everyone's ready. All fair play. As we've just had the weather updated, so it will be a completely dry race, just like it was meant to be, for these drivers not to chuck them into anything out of the ordinary. However, I do feel like if it was to have rained, they may have gone to the wrong party. Sorry for a few joke puns, well, song title puns. The Wrong Party, of course, by Andy Grammer. Ordinary by Thingy. And now we've just had some PSGL rules thrown at the div manager. So we will now go racing in dynamic conditions instead of dry, due to those rules saying if a restart's called it must be dynamic. As it does look like it'll be a sunny Baku either way. So, the flirting with the weather, I'll call it, will not change a thing. And we'll go back for a quality race. As we have just got to wait a bit more. Yes, the waiting game is crucial here. Just as these drivers are going to have a few moments to sort out their settings, sort out their setups, and then we can officially say we are racing tonight. probably had the time to go and grab a drink or whatever, but opportunities wasted, as quite a few of these drivers will be hoping not to waste the opportunity to win today in Azerbaijan. As now the lighting sequence begins. It's Wards versus Spiga into turn 1. Lights out and away we go here for PSGL season 42 round 2 as Spiga goes to the inside of the Racing Bulls, trying all they can to take an early lead. It's going to be rule to rule into turn 2. Contact between the front runners as Spiga will be able to pinch their way through down the inside. And this now drag race up towards turn 3. Will it be Spiga? Will it be Wards into that third corner? We will find out in a moment, and it is in fact going to be the Mercedes of Spiga as the two Aston Martins get to some kissing as Bill Sousa spun round by Lucas, and down the field they go. Yellow flag and a virtual safety car out in this race as Benjamin has gone for a trip off, as Bill Sousa getting 10 seconds for severe collision with Lucas, which is very interesting to say the least. More than anything, Lucas went a bit hot on the brakes against someone who already went hot on the brakes on someone else, and found them both end up going into a little bit of a spin. And now you can even see there Lucas struggling, as we are now back to green flag racing as the two McLarens losing chunks of their front wings in this start. But for the sake of Racing Bulls, it's P2 and P4 as things stand, as they are definitely on the charge to try and make this a 1-2 as a 1-12 a week ago. But the momentum does look like it has swung into their favours. You just see everyone channeling their way through as the two McLarens definitely doing some major damage limitation, making sure they can make it to the pit lane. But for the sake of Spiga, he heads up towards turn 1 to start the second lap of 26 here tonight with a 54.4, and currently no threat. But a bit further back, Thiago being put under pressure by the Aston Martin of Bruno. Can Bruno overtake the Racing Bulls here and gain a top 4? No, he won't. He'll have to sit and wait for a while longer. However, they will dart towards turn 3. DRS wide open for all of them as Bruno pulling to the inside, looking to try and make a lunge, but instead Yannick to the outside into the Haas. He didn't look too competitive in qualifying, but now he sprung straight into life here, and that is the Haas up into P5, absolutely giving it everything in this early stage. As you can see the tyre strategies, 4 drivers have pitted on this opening lap, 1 driver on the hards from the start, 2 on the softs, everyone else on the mediums. As Spiga makes a big mistake and Wards has found their way through and back into the lead of this race. Passy now on the back of the Mercedes, as I said earlier, Haas the best of those not joint on 16, which is of course Racing Bulls and McLaren. But for VCARB this is going well for them, and Haas definitely doing all they can to keep up as much as possible. Race strategies here today, it's most likely a 2. As I don't know why, but I feel like I've got something stuck in my throat, which is such an uncomfortable feeling when trying to talk away. As Spiga working towards turn 1 with DRS wide open, doesn't manage to get by, but who will be is Priori Bell B on Bruno. And that is the Sauber up into P7 quite nicely for the driver who failed to finish a week ago, kissing the wall there but getting back on their journey, as it's a good start so far for them, as Bruno's really just been working his way backwards in that Aston Martin ever since the start procedure. So did Sousa, as Matthew Manga in the pits now for the Mercedes team, going on to a set of hards to try and go long, maybe even trying to see if they can take it to the end. It's very, very opportunistic, but why not take the opportunity when you're very much out of the running for the time being? 7 seconds off of Nick, looking closer to 10 due to that delay counter. But NB over the back of Yannick now. Can the Williams make a move on the Haas driver? Williams pointless in round one, hoping to get something out of this. As into the, I've lost my spot, into the final slow speed corner. There we go. My English has returned once again, as Danilo has retired from the race, and it's yellow flags once again. It's a VSC that's been called for what you can see there, the second victim off in that castle section. And now almost everyone going to the pit lane, seeing what they can do, trying to get off of the mediums or softs and get on some much fresher boots to try and guide themselves to the end of this race. As you've got Diogo Silva and Harm, who have stayed out to try and do something different and maybe even bring themselves into the higher runnings of this race, as everyone but them have pitted now. Even drivers who pitted on the opening lap are pitting again for hards. This is all strategy playing out as we are now back underway, and for Christian it's a drive-through for speeding under the VSC. Off goes Matthew Manga into the first corner, now rejoining, trying to race Nick and Lucas out of the pit lane, and there's Nick just ahead of Matthew Manga, whilst in the meantime Wards has the lead over Spiga, and then NB72 all over the back of Tiago again. So many of these cars are not looking too overly competitive in qualifying trim, but now really having an elixir of life kick into play, as they really do seem like different drivers, so much more confident, so much more aggressive, and even so much more capable of slicing their way up through the field. It's quite awkward regarding the fact NB72, Priori Belbel and Yannick all failed to score last week. Yannick 13th, NB 14th, and then Priori DNF. And they are now all in the points, having a good run at their chances today. Whilst Bruno sitting in P10 waiting for something more to do, whilst Tiago does look like they have kind of became lost and need someone to try and go and find them, as this is not looking reassuring for the man who won the season opener. He's going to have Passy try and close in after this race by taking about 2 points 2 points out of the title advantage, and those 2 points will drop the gap from 4 to 2. As it's really becoming quite difficult to talk, guys. But we will continue to push on throughout this event. If worse comes to us, I'll go and grab a drink in the middle of it. Just shows how well prepared I typically am to something like this. As Spiga putting the pressure on towards, who is in fact stuck behind Diogo Silva, who is 2.5 seconds back from the Williams driver who leads this race at the moment. As the Racing Bulls now closing in to the Alpine. They'll get DRS down this straight as well. They'll go to the inside and breeze their way by, and you can even see Spiga going to the outside of Wards. It's going to be wheel to wheel between Mercedes and the Racing Bulls. They'll give space both on the inside and the outside, as Benjamin St. Passy is trolling in this race, as there is Wards up into second place, and Spiga up into third, but it's not done there as the Mercedes will have DRS on the Racing Bulls this time round. As they work their way to turn 3, they will not be able to try and execute a move. Instead, they will continue to play the waiting game, be patient, and maybe good things will come their way for the sake of Spiga. It will be a race win, but at the moment, Racing Bulls looking to make it 2 wins in 2 today and really assert some dominance in this title campaign at such an early stance as well. But for now, we will just have to sit and wait as Ward's dicing away at that gap to Hahn, as Mattis Gullit has joined a bit too late with 20 drivers all filled up. They won't be able to race, they'll just be sitting and spectating for the next 21 laps, which is nearly 20, as the leaders rounding out that final corner to give it all a go, as Diogo Silva now has Passy to fight against on this lap. Can the Haas driver make it look as effortless as the 2 ahead of him? DRS wide open, battery in full usage as there's a move up front as that Spiga past Wards and Passy to the inside of Diogo Silva and through into 4th place as well. As 2 of the podium sitters last week now sitting in your provisional podium, that being Thiago and Passy, as Hahn has been overtaken by Spiga and Wards there in one foul swoop. But now you've got Thiago all over the back of Diogo Silva for next time round. That Racing Bulls will hope to make a very easy move and promote themselves up that pecking order. And if they fail to do so, then they may be in quite a bit of trouble for the longevity of this race, as you can really see just how difficult of a race it's been for the Papaya brothers. 16th and 18th as things stand, 2 stops to their name, 1 on the opening lap for wing damage, and then another one in the VSC, so they are now on the strategy as the leaders, whilst Hahn and Diogo Silva trying to make an impact in this race by going off that strategy. Of course, 3rd and 5th at the moment, only drivers yet to pit, as Thiago getting very close to being swallowed up by the cars behind him as they now work their way onto the start-finish straight. You can see NB and Ferrari Bell B going wheel to wheel, as Thiago now going to the inside of Diogo Silva, as it will be absolute manic, as it will be so difficult to track who's ahead, but Ferrari Bell B gets past NB72 as Yannick up into P8 and Diogo Silva. That's not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 cars overtaken in one. Who's overtaken him is the best way to say in one straight, and then Bruno making it 5 cars in the first sector alone in this race, just showing how much of an advantage 4-lap-old hards have compared to 7-lap-old mediums, as Diogo Silva most likely will now just make life rather easy for their teammate of Junkie Angle, who came P10 last week and now could be P10 today with an overtake on Diogo Silva. As we are just going to sit and wait for the move to come around, you can just see the lead Alpine struggling for dear life with those rears, and Junkie Angle currently having to try and fight it. They go to the outside, Diogo Silva just pulls to the inside, makes it rather easy for him, and that is now a driver swap at the Alpine team, sitting 8th in the standings after 1 point in the season opener, hoping to score more today, as it's now Thiago versus Hahn up towards turn 1. Christian has had an offing and through goes Thiago and Ferrari Bell B. Hahn I believe, is into the pits. Yes, in fact they are, as NB72 in P6 with Yannick tucked in behind. But the Sauber of Bell B hoping to use the DRS to full effect here. Down towards turn 3 they go. Can the Sauber get past the Racing Bulls? Make it even less points for the championship leader? No, he won't. He will not be able to work his way by this time, but who will be able to make a move is Benjamin on Diogo Silva, the Red Bull, to the inside of the Alpine, and that is P10 as Matthew Manga getting a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is not how they want to end their race whatsoever, as Lucas on for their third stop of this race, and we are only on lap 9 here in Baku. Just showing how wrong it definitely has gone for the McLaren. At least for them, they can turn around and say at least they aren't last. That unfortunately goes to the Scarlet Red Ferrari of Christian, who is going to be P18 after going through turn 1, as Christian limping down the pit lane now, also retiring from the race. 2 cars gone on the same lap, 1 Mercedes, 1 Ferrari, as this is definitely proving to be a season to forget for the Scuderia. Constructors champions last season, and now 2 pointless races so far, and maybe even a third, as there's Yannick to the inside of NB, and a lovely move for the Haas driver that gives them P6 in this race over NB, and having to try and dodge and weave around the AI of the Ferrari, unfortunately not ghosted for them, this giving NB a perfect chance to strike into turn 3. Through they go. Tiago also going past on Bell B, a nice little switch from both of them here, as Provotox has got harm on fresh tyres, and Axel tucked in behind. Could there maybe be a move for the Williams Brewing as they close in? So much underbraking, and off goes Provotox. They've gone into the back of Christian, who's now seeing them both off in that runoff, as that is what you get really for trying to flirt around with a retired car. And that is a very silly mistake, to say the least, for the reigning Constructors Champions. Provotox rather struggling in PSF2 in general. Hasn't had the best of times here since making a return in round 1. Only 16th for that Ferrari last week, and now 16th again here in the streets of Baku, as Bell B in the DRS range of Tiago. Can the Sauber get close enough to maybe salvage a 4th place, which will definitely boost Sauber's championship hopes? With them currently on 6 points, they kind of need as many points as they possibly can score. But for Ferrari, who will not get by at the moment, as Phil is asking, what am I watching? I do not know either, as this has been a very hectic event so far, with a lobby restart, having a little demo derby as a warm-up, qualifying with 15 places at grid drops, and now all-out action as Racing Bulls hoping to take the 2nd win of this season, not with Tiago this time, but instead with Wards. However, Spiga is starting to speed off a little bit, with that gap growing, as Lucas setting the fastest lap of the race in the Papaya outfit. They'll definitely take that, to say the least. And now it's just about seeing whether or not they can score some points in this race. If not, they'll be ashamed, but if they can, that is absolute perfect for them. us up towards turn 1 now for Priori, Bell B and Tiago. No move into that first corner, and plummeting down the field is Yannick, being overtaken by Junkie Angle and Bruno in one go. As that is the Haas down to P9 at the moment, as we are lap 12 of 26, just shy of that halfway mark in this race, as we are just about to tick 8 o'clock in the UK. In fact, we have just ticked 8 o'clock, so expect probably another 20 odd minutes of action here today in PSGL. PSF2 as PSF1 and PSF3 have both gone live, so doesn't mean you dash off to see them, but if you'd like to see the other two divisions unravel, they've got qualifying starting now, whilst the main race here unravels. Come the time we finish this, their races should be starting, so you can get a little bit of both, well, of all three worlds if you really wanted to go between PSF1 and PSF3 throughout tonight. However, we have still got quite a long way to go. Priori Bell B still hoping to get that Sauber up into the top 4 of this race. The top 3 scored double-digit points, so this is still for singular digits. But into the first corner, unable to do so as Junkie, however, able to overtake Bruno with a nice move, slotting it down the inside, almost as if it's a slot machine. And the Alpine hitting that jackpot with P7 now being theirs, but Bruno hoping to attack back, whilst Benjamin all over the back of them in the Red Bull goes to the inside. Does Benjamin, hopes it works. Junkie goes deep and off. That's them plummeting down, as Benjamin has officially got ahead of Bruno for P7. Bill Souza getting past Axel there, and now hoping to gain about 6.5 seconds to get into the points today. Quite a way to go, but still half a race to do it in. Only need half a lap, not half a lap, half a second a lap, but every lap until lap 26 if they want it to work. But I could not tell you if it will anyways. As yeah, we'll just continue to wait as Bell B again in DRS range of Tiago just about as they work their way up towards turn 1. Can the Sauber overtake the Racing Bulls? Dear me, as I'm starting to doze off. But yeah, Priori Bell B doesn't manage to get close enough, as this is the stage where their tyres are just going to be overheating to a point in which they just go backwards as Yannick into the pit lane. This could be a stage where we see drivers shift to another set of hard compounded tyres and take it 12 laps to the end. Yannick, in fact, being the first of which to do so, as Harman Diogo Silva have a slightly longer journey to complete on their hards. They pitted about 5-ish laps ago due to staying out under the VSC. Tried gaining places that way. Can't really tell if it's fully worked at the moment. For the sake of harm, it definitely has. They're currently in P9 in that Williams, while their teammate also doing a good job up in P6. So it really all is going nice and well for them. But Bruno closing up to the back end of Benjamin as Bell B over the last lap. 8 tenths dropped from Tiago. The Racing Bulls starting to get back into their own, whilst Spiga still prevailing up the top, hoping to go against the grain and take their first win of this PSF2 season. They will be waiting for it as Wards into the pit now, hoping to make that undercut, hoping to try and cause some manic as Bell be into the pits as well. So is Bruno. So many drivers making a stop. NB72 is Junkie Angle. I won't be surprised if they do so, but no, they will stay out in that Alpine, with Bill Souza also staying out as Diogo Silva going to the inside, and that is the Alpine up into P11, whilst Axel and Nick, I believe it is, going in for stop. Nick, in fact, staying out. But now, this is the stage where it's all about those deltas. That's Priory, Bell B on the back of Junkie Angle now for P7 in this race. Christian has departed for the evening, not happy with the way things have gone whatsoever, and will definitely be hoping to rethink and recuperate for next time round. As they are just following through, you could see there Bell B having a little glance to the inside, hoping for it to work. Instead, now getting on throttle sooner and past the Alpine with very little effort needed, really, to a point where they didn't need to wait for DRS zone. Yes, they're slightly rushed on time because they've got to bear in mind where everyone else is. Spiga and Passy and Tiago all in the pit lane at the moment. Well, Benjamin now adopts your race lead for Red Bull. Last time Red Bull led in PSGL, it was Kevin Zunneberg last season, and now him up in PSF1, hoping he does well there with his race today, also at Baku. But Spiga now fending off against Wards. That Racing Bulls with one lap undercut got them right back into range of the Mercedes, hoping to now put the threat, put the pressure on until the end, and we'll see whether or not that Mercedes does crack come the end of today's race, as it is proving to be one difficult drive for Wards and Spiga, so elite that they are just having to dance around the walls as things stand. But now Wards will get DRS next time round. That is probably the biggest win in which you can have at this track. Currently 3 attempts between them, but Benjamin just ahead as well. So Spiga is going to get the DRS off of the Merc as well, whilst Bell B also a DRS range of Tiago in that Racing Bulls. Up towards turn 1, will Spiga overtake Benjamin with too much ease? To the inside they'll go, and that is P1 once again for the Mercedes, and Wards does not go for a move. That's giving the Mercedes some hope of pulling away, but Wards is going to look to the inside for turn 2, instead goes into the back of the Red Bull, trying to give him a little bit of a hurry up. The junior team bossing the big dogs around is the best way to describe it, as Wards to the inside, and that is then through, as I believe Lucas has had another offing in the McLaren, not going their way whatsoever, as Junkie Angle onto a set of mediums in this race to try and take it to the end for the Alpine team, as Lucas once again off in that final corner. But Wards now a second back on the Mercedes of Spiga. Not ideal whatsoever. They would have ideally wanted to stay in this race as long as possible, but the Mercedes in a rather comfortable position. They've been driving so assertively from lights out with that early move. They've hardly been challenged all race, as Lucas now into the pits, I believe, and most likely putting an end to their race in Baku, which is a shame for the man who came P3, not P3, who came P6 only a week ago. Also had a strongish race there, but they are coming back out, so they are just hoping to take it as long as they can. Benjamin into the pits, whilst Thiago to the inside of Harm. Can the Williams hold on? No, they won't. The Racing Bulls up and through. The Sauber also following in their tracks, as that is a nice move from them both. As pressure starting to rise in the fight for 4th place, alongside the fight for your race win. It's of course not came around just yet, but we never know. We could see it all spark and kick into overdrive in the next 15 odd minutes of racing, as we've got Belbel B being the first victim to the track limits today, with 3 seconds being awarded for track limits. Not ideal for the man, only 3.5 seconds clear of Bruno in 7th, and only 4.2 clear of Envy in the Williams in 8th. It could be rather close between them, but Belbel B definitely doing a superb job at staying in touching distance of Thiago. The longer they can do that, the safer they should be, as Wards now within 6/10 of Spiga. Will they be lunging to turn 1? No, they won't. Would have left it way too late anyways if they were to have done so. Mattia Manga has departed for tonight. That Mercedes, of course, retiring on about lap 7, putting their race to a very brief stint, as Ward's just getting stuck in that DRS. The Mercedes just quick enough in a straight line to hold on against any threat in which the Racing Bulls may bring up to them. But all in all, this is definitely a racing which the Racing Bulls team want to win, just because it will then give them an increased upper hand into round 3 in a week's time at Austria. Then we go Kota, Netherlands, Brazil, Singapore, Belgium, Abu Dhabi, and then end in Jeddah for round 10. So about 8 weeks time or whatever. But yeah, Belbel B just sitting and waiting it out behind Thiago, trying to get as far away from the cars behind as possible. You can even see them going down the hill as Belbel B entered the braking zone for that final corner. As Lucas setting your fastest lap here today in the McLaren, soft compounds on, that being a big help to their hopes here today. As Ward sitting in 2nd place, Spiga just ahead in 1st. This is a good opportunity by the looks of it. Ward's closer than they have been for the last few laps. They'll close in, but again, just not close enough this time around, as the two Williams make a swap into turn 2. You've got Yannick just ahead of Diogo Silva. Can the Alpine try and fight back? They've got 4 lap older tyres, showing that the Alpine's gamble in that early stage just isn't able to pay off this time round. But they could fight back. Looking to the inside, they had a glance, but it wasn't a big enough gap in their eyes to try and slot it down the inside against Junkie Angle, now against Bill Souza, the Aston Martin, keeping composure and not letting anything faze them whatsoever in this race. Now it's the Red Bull of Benjamin on the back of Harm, 2-lap-old mediums, definitely one of the quicker cars out on track, just shimmying and swaying their car around, trying to see where the space is. They'll look to the inside, look to the outside, and now decide they will wait for that DRS zone. It's not like they urgently have to hunt down, but the sooner they can do it, the sooner they can aim for the top 5, as they're only about 6 seconds away, as there's a full course safety car that has came out for Axel, who has crashed in the castle section. That is going to neutralise so much in this race, as pretty much all the front runners who are able to has gone down the pit lane. Spiga and Wards will almost definitely follow them into the pits next time round, but this has now led to the race being blown wide open here in Azerbaijan for PSF2. We are not far from the end whatsoever. Only got about 5 laps after this one to go. By the time safety car comes in, we'll have only 3 odd racing laps. So it's all or nothing for these guys, as it will be heavily dependent on what happens in the next few moments' time. Now everyone's just gonna hold on. Most drivers on the softs, 4 drivers yet to pit apart from Speed and Ward, so 6 in total. Ben on 3-lap-old mediums, Bill Souza 5-lap-old hards, and Nick 5-lap-old hards. We've also Lucas 4-lap-old soft compound tyres. Quite a few drivers needing that push to the end. They think they may have it in them. Yeah. We'll now just wait again for that full safety car to come in, but you can now see Spiga and Ward's front 2 did look like Spiga was a lot more comfortable on the harder compounds of tyres, so maybe we could see a little bit of a fight come the end of this race. But remember, Tiago and Passy, the current top 2 in the championship after the first race, sitting only 3rd and 4th, so do not rule them out whatsoever, as I can tell you for a fact this is going to get rather heated in a couple of moments time, as you've got some drivers pitting again for fresher softs just to try and get into the drivers' heads, give less laps and better wear for themselves. As Provatox drive-through penalty for falling too far back in the Scuderia. A bit harsh regarding they're still limping through the final sector, and the lead group into the final sector in a few moments' time. Provotox again. Drive-through penalty for falling too far back. Yeah, we just continue to wait this race out. Provotox has retired and left. I do feel sympathetic for them. That was a few too many harsh penalties, I'd say. Because, yeah, if you're punishing him for falling too far back, then surely you should be punishing the other drivers, EA. That just shows the game for you. But yeah, just gonna have to live with how buggy the game is. Don't worry, F127 is the next installment of the 26 mod in the near future. As Lucas going to the hard compounder tyres now. But yeah, I do think the safety car will be in this lap, give us 3 laps of racing. If not, it will wait for the McLaren of Lucas to come around and give us 2 laps. Either way, we will have a very tight finish, to say the least, in Azerbaijan. As the safety car lights have not turned off yet, so we will have 1 more lap under this full course safety car. And this is a good chance for the likes of Alpine, for the likes of McLaren and Williams to get some points out of this. Williams, only team still running that hasn't scored this season so far. Currently 9th and 11th. So hopefully they can get 1 or 2 points, maybe even double points in the bag today. Unfortunately for Ferrari, Provotox and Christian both out of the race today, so they will not be able to score whatsoever. You've got Diogo Silva now on fresher soft compounder tyres. Again, that fresher emphasis giving them a slight upper hand than those with 2 lap scrub. It could definitely be crucial, but if it fails, then that's just a wasted stop, because Diogo Silva was right on the outskirt of salvaging a point. But yeah, safety car almost indefinitely coming in this lap. Now leading the safety car. Well, leading the safety car restart, should I say. They will have control on when to run as long as the safety car is in the pit lane. From the time they reach the start-finish line, it's all legal. So when will the Mercedes run? Everyone bunched up in the 15 cars that split about 200 metres of road. When will the Mercedes start? They'll have to try and catch Ward's off. And now they are going to launch their silver arrow up towards the first corner. Will there be any lunges? Passy looking to the inside there for a brief moment, but for the most part everyone keeping it well behaved in amongst the order, as there's a little bit of a kerfuffle between Nick and Harm, as there's some wall-to-wall action there. There's even NB to the inside of Yannick. Yannick in fact getting past Bill Souza. But will Wards go for a lunge? No, they won't. Again, further back, Priory, Bell B and Benjamin going at it. Priory holding on against the Red Bull, while Harm going round the outside of Bill Souza, in fact getting a bit caught off balance, and Diogo Silva slotting by in the Alpine. And now Nick even going around the outside of the Aston Martin as well. This really has not been an ideal restart for them whatsoever, but for Diogo Silva this is looking quite good to get his first points in about 7 PSGL races. This could be a day for him to remember. But we are so close to entering the final lap of this race. Wards is running out of time, and Spiga has put the foot fully to the floor. No second thoughts about it, as Yannick pushing Benjamin round that final corner, trying to get by, trying to push that Haas up into the top 6, which would be absolutely crucial for their Constructors' Championship, as the Haas driver now getting DRS, not DRS doesn't even come back for another lap, but they're going to get the slipstream. Look to the outside, and that will be Yannick up and through into P6, whilst Junkie Angle overtaking Bill Souza. Now we can focus back up to the front runners. Wards 4/10 behind on Spiga will be deploying all the battery in which they have available to them as they try and close into the Mercedes, but just won't be able to get close enough this time round, as Thiago unable to overtake Passy in that bit of straight. Bruno and NB to the inside of Benjamin, but Benjamin fighting back against Williams of NB to the outside there, pinned to the wall. And now Harm is going to try and have the final blow, but NB will be able to continue this fight around, will get ahead of Benjamin, and now Harm trying to get on throttle, but Diogo Silva is coming through in the Alpine, as there's some stuff going on. There's a big pile up, that's what's happened, as round is Wards, that is in the Racing Bulls. I think he had a fairly over ambitious lunge, and now Bruno and NB trying to negotiate it. Harm will squeeze through, Junkie Angle will squeeze through as well for Diogo Silva. Unfortunately, that will be them all the way down and out. Well, yellow flags now being cleared up. Nick missing about half a front wing, but ahead of Passy this time round. Thiago will be happy, he comes home P2, but round the final corner up to the start finish line now, it's going to be Spiga who will win for Mercedes here in Baku. It'll be Thiago who will come home P2 in the Racing Bulls to take a race win for themselves and a P2 in the starting 2 races. Priory Bell B will just about beat Yannick over the line, but they'll both plummet due to penalties. Nick will come home 3rd for the 2nd race in a row. Then it's Passy in 4th, Ben 5th. And that is it all resolved, as boy oh boy, that was a very unexpected end to this race, with Wards, arguably the favourite to grab the win, missing out as a result of a collision that saw them round and down the order. as here is your final outcome for today. It's Spiga who wins, followed by Tiago in second, Nick in third, Passy fourth, Ben fifth, Priori sixth, Harm seventh, Junkie Yangle in eighth, NB in ninth, and Bruno comes home 10th with Bill Souza, Lucas, Yannick, Diogo Silva and Wards finishing. But outside your points, then it's Provatox, Axel, Christian, Matthew Manga and Danilo all failing to finish. But that's all for me. I've got a very tight schedule as I'm meant to be producing video for the NHS now, but hopefully we will have an even more interesting race out in the Alps next week in Austria for PSGL Season 42 Round 3, as Wards may be aiming to seek some revenge after a very disappointing end to today. But for now, that's been me, and I'll see you all hopefully in a week's time. Goodbye.